Alright Reddit, so we've seen some ways our friends have quickly messed up their lives, but now I ask you this, what's the quickest way you've seen a friend drastically improve their life? Not a friend per se, but a guy I went to high school with. I don't really know exactly what happened to him during his childhood, but he never learned how to read and had some issues with social cues and all sorts of learning disabilities. He wasn't disabled per se, but he had issues on I suspected child abuse. He was into drugs and didn't really care about school. They signed him up for a woodworking class and a CAD class. I'm not sure why, but they did. Those two rooms at my high school were connected, and the teachers would swap classes from time to time. They were also both self-paced classes, so the teachers were there mostly for guidance, not for teaching. Well, this guy falls in love with woodworking and starts busting out these amazing projects super quickly. He couldn't afford the materials, so the woodshop teacher was covering all the supplies. The CAD teacher took this kid under his wing and helped teach him to read. He went from all F's to A's in a matter of months. He was pretty open about his drug use and the two teachers helped get him clean. He was still in high school at 21 because he was so far behind, but they kept him in woodworking and CAD because those were his best classes. The woodshop teacher was a veteran and pulled some strings and got this guy a good score on the ASVAB so he could join the military. He signed up and went off to basic. I never really kept up with where he was in life, but a few years ago I was back in my hometown, and in the matter of a few years he went from being a literate drug addict to a community college graduate with a construction degree. He had gotten discharged for medical reasons, but his time in the military really helped him out, it seemed. He was working for a construction company and was preparing to go back to college to become a teacher. He wanted to get into special education. All in all, he was always a very nice guy who had such a shitty life. He had never been to a doctor before he was 19, and the two teachers sent him in for a doctor's appointment and covered the costs. His success really goes to show that we might complain that the education system is broken, but there is still hope. If this guy can go from failing high school to signing up for a 4-year university in a few years time frame, there is hope. Best friend was a literal party girl, about 50 lbs. Overweight and promiscuous due to low self-esteem issues. She just woke up one morning at age 30, stopped all the partying and screwing around, lost weight and went back to college. She's a lawyer now. Might sound weird, but accidentally got a girl pregnant soon after he started dating her. They became serious. She is a super cool girl. Their daughter is adorable. He got more serious about work and being responsible. Still hangs out now and then, but he is in a much better place now. My friend used me to get out of a bad place in his life. Friend was living in his car and working gritty job in a city that he had no friends anymore in. He did it partially as a rebellion and partially because he was smoking his money away. He lost his job after getting into it with a manager and called me up about 1,500 miles away and asked if he could move in for a few months. He used the last of his money to get to me. He was essentially starving because of his lifestyle choices and couldn't see a way out. He got a couple of jobs quickly and with the improved socialization, pretty much stopped smoking and being self-destructive. He got the runaround from a couple of places he worked, but got some skills that would help him get a better paying job and refocused on education and teaching. After 10 months, he left living in a 1-bedroom apt with me to move back to our hometown and re-enroll in school and work a decent job to get him through that. He ended up changing to different things, but with a bit of education got a plan together, landed a job at a startup company, and is doing well, working his way up the management chain as one of the company's up and coming stars. Dude was a high school dropout, spent some time locked up for dealing drugs and breaking into places, always stoned or hungover. His mom wasn't in the picture, and his dad was in no better state than he was. Some friend of his brought him to some church function, and something or someone must have seriously resonated with him. He quit drugs and cigarettes cold turkey. He gave up alcohol for a few months, until he trusted himself to drink responsibly. He was always asking the old people questions, and one of them could see his heart, and landed him a job, where we met. He's now out on his own, and taking online classes, while working in sales at a lumber company, but he spends his weekends helping out at a battered women's shelter, and he took up cubing and has some 20 seconds solves. TL. Doctor, dude found Jesus. My roommate/friend was dating this girl who was so manipulative. She was trying to make our other roommate jealous so she could be with him instead, and it killed my friend on the inside. He resorted to weed, molly, coke, all the drugs and alcohol. At the same time his parents were getting a divorce. Also at the same time guy was threatening him and his sister due to the divorce. He was off the rails. I walked into his room one day and he was bawling his eyes out. He told me everything and damn. Picture knowing a roommate for about 4 months and having them express everything they've been dealing with. The same day he broke up with that girl, quit the drugs, and he has never looked back. I'm so proud of what he did. We still live together, and he's back with his high school sweetheart, who is awesome. He's doing awesome. By breaking up with me, not long after we started going out, she got laid off from her customer service job due to the owner being an absolute fucknut. The ex-employees had to go collect their last wage packet from the owner's mother. By the time we amicably split up years later she still hadn't managed to find anything, and I don't believe it was for lack of trying. A fair few interviews, but she couldn't quite get over. I remember being unemployed for mere months and that made me feel pretty awful. I can barely imagine what it was like for her. She was putting on more weight too, which she was vocally unhappy about. Safe to say the two of us were in a rut, spending weekends sitting on our laptops in her bedroom without much in the way of talking. That's when we were even awake at the same time. She would sleep past noon quite easily. I'm pretty sure I didn't help matters by paying for all our drinks, snacks, meals, cigarettes, big oops, that one, and such like. Even after she asked me to be harder on her about all these things, I couldn't bring myself to do it. As a result, we spent weekend after weekend doing bugger all, and if you do that for long enough, you're likely to find yourself wanting. But after we split up, she started exercising and has lost a significant amount of weight. She's especially happy that a pile of her old clothes now fit her again. She's been getting more job interviews, keeping more sensible sleeping hours, and just recently, she finally landed a job. Years of trying have finally paid off. As for me, I've had more time to dedicate to my own hobbies, at least the ones I couldn't do if I was out of my house on weekends, and more money to spend blow save. I thought our breakup would have been a lot more depressing. Seeing my friend improve her life of her own volition and for her own benefit has been a great thing to see. Seeing that work finally pay off for her is even better. I'm a very proud ex-boyfriend, if that makes any damn sense. My roommate in university was a man with no possible career. Truly, he is basically the next day of a deadline. His family wasn't rich, not even average. Somehow he managed to marry the daughter of the spokesman of Erdogan. Yes, and suddenly he became someone. Hate this shit. He didn't even get the exam, governmental exam for job application, that everybody must pass, yet he has a salary around 90k USD. This is what we call improvement in Turkey. Changing their environment. There's a saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Most people I've known that try to drive a major personal change in the same situation fall off the wagon. The ones that succeed change it. I had a friend from Virginia with a major drug problem. He decided to go to school in Utah because it's a lot easier of a place to stay clean. He got into a bunch of top grad schools, UCLA, Berkeley, etc., but turned them down to be a part of a startup. Had a college degree, but stuck working dead-end office job and had no luck with love life. Just smoked weed and played WoW to cope with the depression. Said fuck it, sold his possessions, packed his bags, and moved to Russia to teach English 6 years ago. Saved his money, had romances, met the love of his life, married her, now has a kid on the way, might be moving back to the US soon to buy a house and start his own business. I'm my own best friend. I knew a guy who was struggling with a drug addiction. Close friends knew about it, but he was otherwise very secretive. He had a job and a house, and was otherwise pretty functional. Eventually it all blew up, and he got fired. Long story short, he finally admitted his issue and sought help. After about a year he got clean, found a new job that was even better than the last and just recently got married to a wonderful woman. If you have drug or alcohol problems, it's hard to admit it, but probably worth it. I have a friend who's really bad with money, like going into overdraft every single month and not being able to afford food for at least a week at a time. Just a few hours ago, he set up a second account with no overdraft and is sending a set amount of money to the new account every month when he gets paid to try and get it under control. I'm proud of him. One of my roommates in college started off innocent and sweet freshman year, but by our junior year, she was doing lines of cocaine off our kitchen counter, sleeping with anything that moved, and then had a mental breakdown which ended up having her being admitted to a psych ward. She dropped off the face of the earth for 2 years, before coming back where she had done a complete 180. She's now in a long-term relationship, has her master's degree, and is a elementary school teacher. It may not be quick Peresi, but damn, that girl turned her life back around. By having a kid, I've seen it happen several times. Friend just isn't trying hard in life and really doesn't care. I've seen it with guy friends and female friends. Most of the females are raising their kids on their own though. It's like a switch for them. They know they have to do better. It makes their life so much harder, but from an outside perspective they have turned it around. I'm not a parent, so I'm not sure if that is how it is for every parent, but I imagine a majority think that way. A lad I went to school with was really shy, slightly overweight and pretty much a loner. One day we were all asked, at school, what we want to be when we are older. When it was his turn, he just said accepted. Blew my mind. A few girls started crying. You know, the exaggerating type who probably bullied him anyway, but most just sat in silence. The teacher just moved on with the lesson. Anyway, at break that day a few of us went over to talk to him. Turned out he was a really cool guy. He started hanging out with our group of around 20, played footy with us, lost the weight, and became one of the most popular kids in school. This newfound confidence led to him joining a band. He now tours up and down the UK as a lead guitarist for a fairly popular band. Crazy to think all he did to become less lonely was ask to be noticed. My sister quit a job that was making her miserable to start working for a new company. She took an $8 an hour pay cut to do this. Now, a couple years later, she's actually making more than she was at the first job. But even when she wasn't making much, she was visibly so much happier. A toxic job can really take the life out of you. Personal story here. About a year ago, I was just another bro in my fraternity. I drank a lot, smoked pot way too much, and had begun to delve into the harder psychedelics such as LSD. I'm a brilliant person, but I'd let my GPA fall well below where I needed it to be for me to get into grad school and actually pursue my dreams in cutting edge engineering. It was still salvageable, but not for long. I was taking summer classes, and one weekend my friend convinced me to go to a cookout/local music festival with him. I went, but I did a half tab of LSD, unknown to him. It ended up mixing poorly with the alcohol and the weed, and I freaked out a little. Forced myself to finally take a skeptical look at my life, and realized I despised the person I'd become. That was the beginning. Did LSD a few more times after, then just quit. Been clean a year now. Quit weed shortly after, fell into hard times with my fraternity, which, in retrospect, was an incredibly toxic and negative environment. Quit smoking weed, finally quit the fraternity and hard drinking at the same time. Been a half year now. GPA is well over 3.0, on my way to a 4.0 this semester. My social life has improved drastically. Confidence with the fairer 6, always been an issue for me, has improved dramatically. Real confidence in general has finally manifested. I feel like myself again. I'm actually continuing personal development that had completely stalled out freshman year when I got into all the shit that dragged me down. I'm actually pursuing my dreams. They are getting closer. They are going to be in reach. And it was painful. It was hard losing all those friends I had at the fraternity, but it was worth it. Never fucking give in. My younger brother had just drank himself out of his second semester in college, was hanging with the wrong crowd, and owed that wrong crowd so much money he found himself driving up I-95 with a few bricks to pay off his debt. He said that he had the epiphany while driving in Southern Virginia that he was one traffic stop away from going to jail for 20 years. He was smart enough that he knew If he didn't change his friends and where he lived, he'd never get away from everything. So he went back home and told my parents he was going to join the army and go into the special forces. This was back when the army still had the 18X program and it was possible to enlist and go SF directly, although few made it. It shocked my parents and me, who was already in the army. He did it though, and even though he didn't make SF the first time, he did a deployment in Iraq, met the woman who would later become his wife, served honorably for another year or two as an NCO, went back to SF training, made it, did some more overseas time, had a kid, and left the army. He's now married, happy, a great dad, and has a good federal job. All of which is solely due to him realizing he had to change things. One of my best friends has always been a super smart kid. Funny, popular, awesome guy. But in high school he was never the best student per se. He did alright but nothing stellar. Fast forward to college, he went to a military school and the kid is a poster boy for success. Top of his class, head of one of the 4 platoons, not sure what you call them, in his school, and on track to be a pretty high rank when he graduates. He's my best friend and I'm so happy to see him find this success. I guess they say some kids are made for the military, and he absolutely is.